May 6, 2006. A highway patrol officer pulls over a red Cadillac Escalade in Las Vegas for a routine traffic stop. The driver seems nervous, avoiding eye contact. In the passenger seat sits an older man wearing a baseball cap pulled low, pretending to sleep. The officer runs the plates. Nothing unusual. He's about to let them go when something catches his eye. The sleeping passenger's hands are gripping the seat too tightly, his breathing too controlled. This isn't a man resting, this is a man hiding. The officer asks for both IDs. The driver, Warren's brother Isaac, hands his over without issue. The passenger slowly reaches into his pocket and hands over a license. It's a fake name, an alias, but something about this man's face nags at the officer. He's seen it somewhere before. Then it clicks. The FBI's most wanted posters at the station. The officer's instincts scream. He radios dispatch. Within minutes, backup arrives. They run the passenger's fingerprints and the match confirms what the officer suspected. This isn't whoever the ID claims, it's Warren Jeffs, the prophet of a 10,000-person religious sect, accused of arranging marriages between grown men and girls as young as 12. He's number 6 on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, sandwiched between terrorists and serial killers, and he's been on the run for nearly 2 years. But here's what makes this story insane. Warren Jeffs didn't just run from the law. He ran an entire religion while evading federal agents, marrying off children from motels, collecting millions in tithes, and convincing thousands of followers that he spoke directly to God. How does a religious leader become one of America's most wanted fugitives? And what kind of world creates a monster who believes he's untouchable? 1955, Salt Lake City, Utah. Warren Steed Jeffs is born into royalty, religious royalty. His father, Rulon Jeffs, leads the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the FLDS. They're not your average Mormons. The mainstream Mormon church abandoned polygamy in 1890 to achieve statehood. The FLDS said no thanks and kept the old ways. Multiple wives, absolute obedience to the prophet, and a belief that the apocalypse is coming any day now. Warren grows up in a compound where his father has at least 65 wives and possibly 80. Warren has somewhere between 60 and 70 siblings. Nobody can keep an exact count. Imagine Thanksgiving dinner. As a child, Warren is quiet, bookish, and obsessed with control. He's not the charismatic golden boy you'd expect to lead a church. He's awkward, soft-spoken, with a voice that never quite deepens past adolescence. But what he lacks in charm, he makes up for in ruthless ambition. By his early 20s, Warren becomes the principal of Alta Academy, the FLDS private school. This is where his pattern begins. Students later recall Warren's bizarre punishments. Children forced to stand facing walls for hours, banned from speaking, isolated for imaginary sins. One former student remembers Warren slapping kids across the face for minor infractions. Control isn't just Warren's job, it's his obsession. In 1986, Warren marries his first wife. By 2002, he'll have at least 78 wives, though the exact number remains disputed. Some are his father's widows, inherited like furniture after Rulon dies. The youngest is 12 years old when Warren, age 48, marries her. September 8, 2002, Rulon Jeffs dies at 92, leaving the FLDS without a prophet. The position doesn't have elections or a formal succession plan. It's decided by divine revelation, which means whoever can convince the community that God chose them. Warren steps forward immediately. He claims his father visited him in a vision and anointed him the one mighty and strong, a biblical reference to the prophet who will lead the faithful through the end times. Not everyone buys it. Several of Rulon's other sons and senior church members believe they have stronger claims, but Warren moves fast. He consolidates power by excommunicating rivals, reassigning their wives and children to loyalists, and declaring that God speaks only through him now. Disobey Warren, and you're disobeying God. Within months, he's untouchable. Warren immediately tightens the screws. He bans television, internet, newspapers, anything from the outside world. He forbids the color red because it represents Christ's blood and only the prophet can wear it. He outlaws toys, bikes, trampolines, anything that might bring children joy. Dogs and cats are banned as unclean. He even prohibits laughing too loudly, claiming it offends God. But the real control comes through marriage. In the FLDS, Warren decides who marries whom. Teenage girls are pulled out of school and informed they're marrying men 2, 3, sometimes 4 times their age. Boys are kicked out of the community at 13 or 14, dumped on the side of highways with nothing, creating a convenient surplus surplus of marriageable girls for older men. Families are ripped apart at Warren's whim. A man who questions doctrine might wake up to find his wives and children reassigned to a more faithful member. By 2004, law enforcement starts paying attention. Arizona and Utah prosecutors receive complaints from escapees, stories of underage marriages and child abuse disguised as religion. But proving it is nearly impossible. The FLDS operates in isolated compounds, its members trained from birth never to speak to outsiders. The walls are high, both literal and psychological. Then a breakthrough. Investigators obtain evidence that Warren performed marriages between older men and young girls. These aren't ancient history. These are recent, documented, and prosecutable. On June 10, 2005, Arizona authorities issue a warrant for Warren Jeffs. Warren doesn't wait for the handcuffs. He vanishes. Warren doesn't run blind. He's been preparing for persecution his entire life. The FLDS teaches that the government is Satan's instrument, that they'll eventually come for the faithful. Warren has cash, lots of it. The FLDS operates construction companies, farms, and businesses, funneling money directly to the prophet. Warren has access to millions in tithing, stored in duffel bags and safe deposit boxes. He also has something more valuable, an army of believers willing to hide him, lie for him, die for him. Within hours of the warrant being issued, Warren disappears into a network of safe houses stretching from Arizona to South Dakota, Texas to Colorado. FLDS members own properties in dozens of states. Warren moves constantly, never staying more than a few nights in one location. By August 2006, the FBI adds Warren Jeffs to the 10 most wanted list. The reward climbs to $100,000. His face appears on billboards, gas stations, and CNN. He's now in the same category as terrorists and serial killers. Yet somehow, Warren stays free. Here's how he does it. Warren travels with a small crew of his most loyal enforcers, brothers, sons, and fanatical followers. They communicate through burner phones, disposable and untraceable. They use code words, biblical references that mean nothing to outsiders. When Warren says he's visiting Zion, his followers know exactly which safe house that means. They drive long distances in rented vehicles, switching cars every few days. They pay cash for everything: gas, food, motels, no credit cards, no paper trail. Warren wears disguises, baseball caps, sunglasses, casual clothes completely unlike his usual prophet attire. In one recorded instance, he pretends to be sleeping in the passenger seat to avoid detection. It almost works. But Warren doesn't just hide. He continues running the church from the shadows. He records audio sermons and ships them back to FLDS communities. His followers gather in secret to listen to their prophet's voice, crackling through cheap speakers. He performs marriages over the phone while sitting in a motel room in Colorado. He collects tithes sent via wire transfer to accounts controlled by his inner circle. Even on the run, Warren's grip on the FLDS never loosens. The FBI pursues him relentlessly. Agents interview escapees, building profiles of Warren's habits and psychology. They track financial transactions, hoping someone slips up. They surveil known FLDS properties, documenting who comes and goes. Tips flood in constantly. Warren spotted in Las Vegas, Warren seen in Salt Lake, Warren hiding in Canada. Most are dead ends. Well-meaning civilians mistaking random men for the fugitive prophet. Then, in May 2006, investigators catch a break. A financial transaction linked to one of Warren's associates pings in Nevada. Agents flood the region, staking out known FLDS properties and watching highways. It's a long shot, but it's all they have. May 6, 2006. Nevada Highway Patrol Officer Eddie Dutchover pulls over the red Escalade. He has no idea who's inside. He's just following procedure, checking a suspicious vehicle. But when he sees the passenger pretending to sleep with white knuckles gripping the seat, instinct takes over. Warren tries to maintain the ruse, but his fake ID falls apart under scrutiny. The fingerprints don't lie. Within minutes, Warren Jeffs, prophet of the FLDS, one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives, is in handcuffs. Inside the Escalade, officers find $54,000 in cash, multiple cell phones, laptop computers, disguises, and a small mountain of documents detailing FLDS financial transactions. They also find something chilling: Warren's priesthood records, a handwritten ledger documenting every marriage he performed, including those involving children. As they load Warren into the patrol car, he says nothing. No protests, no proclamations of divine authority, just silence. The prophet who commanded 10,000 followers, who claimed to speak for God, is just another criminal in the back of a police cruiser. But this isn't the end of Warren's story. It's just the beginning of a legal circus that will expose the full horror of his crimes. How do you prosecute a man whose followers believe he's infallible, and what happens when the evidence against him comes from his own mouth. Warren's trial becomes a media sensation. Prosecutors in Utah charge him with 2 counts of R as an accomplice for arranging illegal marriages. The case hinges on a 2001 marriage Warren facilitated between a 14-year-old and her 19-year-old cousin. The girl, now an adult, testifies that Warren forced her into the marriage, told her to obey her husband, and instructed her that resisting would damn her soul. Warren's defense argues religious freedom. His attorneys claim the marriages are sacred rituals protected by the First Amendment, that the government is persecuting a minority faith. The jury doesn't buy it. On September 25, 2007, Warren Jeffs is convicted on 2 counts of being an accomplice to R. The courtroom erupts. Survivors weep. FLDS members sit stone-faced, convinced this is persecution foretold in Scripture. Warren is sentenced to 2 consecutive terms of 5 years to life in prison, but Utah's conviction is just the beginning. Texas authorities have been building their own case, and it's far more devastating. April 3, 2008. Texas Rangers and Child Protective Services raid the Yearning for Zion Ranch, a sprawling FLDS compound near El Dorado, Texas. Acting on reports of illegal marriages and abuse, over 400 officers swarm the property. What they find is worse than anyone imagined. 439 children removed from the property, many showing signs of systematic abuse. A massive temple where Warren performed secret ceremonies. And then investigators find the Holy Grail. Warren's personal records meticulously documenting every crime in his own handwriting. He kept ledgers of every marriage, every sexual encounter, every moment of abuse. Why would a criminal document his crimes so thoroughly? Because Warren didn't think he was committing crimes. He thought he was doing God's work, and he wanted God to know. But the most damning evidence isn't written, it's recorded. Investigators discover audio tapes Warren made of himself doing things that we cannot even put on YouTube. The recordings are so disturbing that during the trial, jury members break down crying. One juror later says hearing Warren's voice on those tapes was the most horrific experience of their life. Warren recorded his own crimes because he genuinely believed he was teaching sacred ordinances. The delusion is complete. Texas charges Warren with SA of a minor and aggravated SA of a minor. His trial begins in July 2011. Warren fires his attorneys mid-trial, choosing to represent himself. It's a catastrophic decision. He delivers rambling speeches about religious persecution, quotes scripture for hours, and at one point demands the judge call God as a witness. The judge denies the request. On August 9, 2011, the jury deliberates for less than 30 minutes before returning guilty verdicts on both counts. The judge sentences Warren to life plus 20 years in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 2038 when he's 82 years old. As guards lead him from the courtroom, Warren shows no emotion. In his mind, this is all part of God's plan, persecution of the righteous before the end times. But even from prison, Warren's control persists. He continues issuing orders to FLDS members, smuggling out letters and recorded messages. He instructs followers on who can marry, who should be excommunicated, how to run the church's businesses. At one point, he orders all FLDS members to stop having sex entirely, claiming God commanded everyone except Warren to remain celibate. The command splits the community, some obeying, others recognizing it as insanity. In 2014, Warren attempts to end his own life in his cell, claiming God told him to. He survives. In 2019, a Netflix documentary exposes the full scope of his crimes to a global audience, featuring survivors who escaped the FLDS and rebuilt their lives. Their stories are heartbreaking. Childhood stolen, families destroyed, years of therapy to undo the psychological damage Warren inflicted. Today, Warren sits in a Texas prison, isolated from other inmates for his own protection. Child abusers don't fare well in general population. He spends 23 hours a day in his cell, allowed 1 hour for recreation. He receives thousands of letters from faithful FLDS members who still believe he's God's prophet, and justly imprisoned by Satan's government. The real question isn't how Warren Jeffs became a monster. It's how an entire community allowed it. Warren was born into a system that elevated men to godhood and reduced women and children to property. He didn't create that system. He inherited it, perfected it, and weaponized it with ruthless efficiency. In rare moments of clarity, when asked about his crimes, Warren has claimed he was following scripture, doing what prophets have always done. It's a chilling reminder that the most dangerous people aren't always those who know they're doing wrong. Sometimes they're the ones who are absolutely certain they're doing right. The FBI's most wanted list is usually reserved for terrorists, serial killers, and mob bosses. houses. Warren Jeffs proved that sometimes the most dangerous criminals wear religious robes and hide behind scripture. He didn't rob banks or plant bombs. He stole childhoods, destroyed families, and built an empire on systematic abuse. And for nearly 2 years, he evaded federal agents while running a religion from motel rooms and safe houses. One traffic stop brought him down, one alert officer who noticed hands gripping a seat too tightly. That's all it took to end the reign of a man who claimed to speak for God. Warren Jeffs will likely die in prison, another forgotten inmate in a Texas facility, but his victims will carry their scars forever, rebuilding lives from the ruins of a childhood stolen by a prophet who turned out to be just a predator in disguise. The FLDS survivors who escaped have become some of the most powerful voices in the fight against religious abuse. They speak at conferences, write books, and help others escape similar situations. Their message is clear. Faith should never require you to harm children. Authority should never demand absolute obedience, and no one, not even a prophet, stands above the law. Warren Jeffs thought he was untouchable, chosen by God, beyond the reach of earthly justice. He was wrong. And if you think Warren Jeffs' story is shocking, wait until you see what happens when a CIA officer gets caught leaking classified information to the Russians. Check out our video on how one typo took down the biggest mole in CIA history. Click it now.